first, before we get into the substance of what
Sure.
was discussed, what can you say about these legal issue that has ended court today?
I'm not really going to be speaking about the legal issue in the court. We kind of have an agreement that we're going to try to resolve it before it, it's a private matter at this point between the attorneys and the court. So I don't have any comment
Is
on
it
that.
pertaining to the next witness?
I really am not at liberty to speak about that at this point.
You had said to the jury at the beginning that, it's gonna get emotional and they shouldn't, consider emotions. Is this what you're talking about? Are we in the heart of what you would say is, when you see young boys testify, it's very difficult?
I mean, any type of sympathy either way, whether it's sympathy for my client or sympathy for the individuals who are alleged to be struck, or unfortunately for Andrew or Thomas. We're trying to get to the facts. We want the jury to hear the facts and determine if a crime was committed. This was an unfortunate, awful car accident. That's not being disputed. But bringing up the fact that people are injured in an emotional way, I think can have the effect of taking the intellect out of it, taking the ability to see the facts and substituting it with emotion. And I don't think myself or the district attorney's office want this case decided on sympathy or emotion. They want it decided, I want it decided on the facts. And at this point, I think the jury's doing a great job of listening to the testimony, and at some point they're going to apply the facts to the law that the judge gives them, and we believe it's going to be a favorable outcome for Mr. Murphy.
So we're now 2 weeks into this trial. We've been here for about, I believe, 8 days. So what is your assessment about what has been discussed so far? Where do we stand? How do you feel about how things are proceeding so far?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, my opinion doesn't really matter. It's the 12 jurors who are going to decide. But I believe that we've been able to show the jury, the defense has been able to show the jury a multitude of inconsistencies, and the prosecution woefully behind in meeting their burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
You suggested earlier today that maybe the coverage hasn't been fair.
Yeah.
What sentiments would you like communicated that you don't think is being fairly communicated?
I mean, listen, I try not to read the articles because they don't seem to represent the summary of what goes on in court. The newspapers and the media outlets, in my opinion, are more focused on the sympathy aspect, the sensationalist aspect. The facts that are coming out in the court is what I think people want to read about. And instead of putting those in the paper, the inconsistencies between witnesses. The fact that today, one of their witnesses, who is alleged to have been struck by the vehicle, has said in the past that he thinks he might have been struck. He might not have been struck. He indicated in court today that Andrew McMorris was found after the accident, seen after the accident, in the roadway, in the middle of the road. That's what you need to report.
After he was found, so how is that relevant to your case?
Well, just put it in the newspaper and let people decide where people ended up. The people have contended the whole time that Andrew McMorris was on the shoulder of the road, near where the grass was. They have a photograph of that. Their witness came in today and said that after the accident, Andrew McMorris was in the middle of the road. Now, that's a fact that needs to be considered. Those are facts that you put in newspapers so people could say, oh, that's what's going on. Individuals who were supposedly struck were not on the side of the road. They were in the middle of the roadway, according to this witness.
Instead of the case where they were, though, when they were walking?
I can't summarize 16 counts in an indictment in an interview like this.
I guess the question is, what is the relevance of where he landed as opposed to where he started?
What are you suggesting happened?
What is the relevance of the landing point as opposed to the starting point?
The relevance of where people ended up is something that I'm going to argue in court, not with Mr. Ahern standing right here to you guys.
We're just giving you
Freddie,
an
wanna take a picture?
opportunity if you want to make if you wanted to, say what the crux of your defense is.
It's very simple. My client did not leave the roadway. My client was not intoxicated. My client did not drive recklessly. My client was involved in a very, very tragic, unfortunate car accident. If you want to put something in the paper, put the fact that 8 days into the trial, we found out that 2 of the boys who were struck were wearing earbuds in violation of the rules. Put the fact that there was no supervision by the Boy Scout leaders. Put the fact that they were repeatedly admonished and told while they were in the woods on how to behave during the hike. The bottom line is this, and I'm not blaming the boys. These young boys were poorly supervised. They're young boys wearing 50-pound backpacks, walking, according to them, within centimeters sometimes of the road, and sometimes in the road. If you look at the photos that I put into evidence, there was no opportunity for them to not be in the roadway. These are the facts that need to go into the story. I understand that Miss McMorris is a grieving, heartbroken mother, and my heart goes out to her. It's an awful, awful thing that she's having to endure. But those aren't the facts of the case. The facts of the case are being decided in here. They're being proven in here, not in a story with Miss McMorris talking about the fact that she's sad. Obviously she's sad. My client is sad. You're sad. I'm sad. The whole event is tragic and awful. But that's not what's being decided in this courtroom. What's being decided is what are the facts and was there a crime?
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.